My name is Erica Castro, Erikacastro. I'm an organizing manager with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada Action Fund, or Plan Action, here in the Las Vegas office. So as the organizing manager, what I've been focusing on right now is just the election work. So we've been making sure that our community members are aware that there is an election happening, that it's going to be vote by mail, and that they're registered to vote accurately so that they can receive that ballot in the mail. We didn't focus on vote by mail because this is actually the first time that the state of Nevada is switching to fully vote by mail. But we've always made sure that we're engaging our communities through the election. As Plan Action, we focus predominantly in the Black, Indigenous, and immigrant communities across the state. So that hasn't changed. We are still engaging those folks and making sure that they understand the process of voting by mail, because as you mentioned, everything is so different right now. So we want to make sure that they can cast their ballot and also do it safely. So we actually have a couple different forms that we've been doing it. We're doing text banks, and we've also been doing phone banks. So we're either reaching people through text or phone banking, making sure that they are registered to vote and that they understand the different deadlines that are coming up for them to ensure that they get their vote by their ballot in the mail. We're also doing a friend-to-friend outreach through relational organizing, and basically through our Outvote app. What we've been able to do is reach out to our core volunteers and have them reach out to their friends and family. Just because we know that this election is very different, we want to ensure that people are hearing from trusted messengers, and who are better trusted messengers than our friends and family. So those are the folks that we've really been focusing on doing outreach for. So digitally, we've been able to reach a ton of folks because we know that, our communities are getting information through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even YouTube. So one of the things that we've been doing is hosting Facebook Lives where we can talk about what's happening in the community. We're also talking about just the current political climate and ensuring that they know that they have the power in their vote. So we've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, stuff like that. We've also been able to engage folks through our newsletter. So we have our newsletter that goes out every Monday, and it gives an opportunity for our volunteers that maybe are not super engaged to know what are the activities that are happening and how they can continue to get involved. So we've been doing a lot of work. Obviously, most of it is virtual, but we are mobilizing folks through digital advocacy or digital organizing, and then as well as texting and phone banking. So most of our events are actually virtual, just given the current situation and knowing that people of color have been disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus. So most of our events are virtual, but we will be hosting some different events in person, obviously with the social distancing and following the CDC guidelines. But those will be ensuring that those will be around marching to the polls, so there will be distance and just guiding people to their drop box and just making an event out of it. So there will be some in-person events that we'll host to ensure that folks feel that community as they're dropping off their ballots. Voting by mail is not a new concept. I mean, it's new to Nevadans and even other folks in different states, but we know that there are states that have been doing mail-in ballots for many, many years. We know that this is something that is safe, it's secure, and most of all, it's easy for us to be able to do it. For folks that, are working multiple jobs, students that are in school, parents that, now are having to also be teachers and take care of their kids, we want to make sure that they know that this is an easy process. And for folks that are feeling a little bit uneasy about it, in Nevada, you're actually able to track your ballot. So if they just want to track, once they send in their ballot, they can track it by visiting the Secretary of State's website. So it's just a reminder to folks that it's actually very safe, it's very convenient, and it makes your own mailbox into a voting site. So all you have to do is go outside, put it in your mailbox, and it's that simple. And if you're feeling a little bit uneasy, all you have to do is go to the Secretary of State website and track your ballot to make sure that it gets there on time. For us as Plan Action, historically, we work with low income communities, immigrant families, as well as indigenous communities. And we often know that they are the ones that are historically left out of conversations when it comes to the election, or a lot of the times they are the ones that are being, knocked on their door as we are just like right around the election. So for us, it's really important to make sure that we are reaching out to low propensity voters, because it's not to us, it doesn't mean that they are not willing to vote. It just means that maybe somebody hasn't engaged them. And we know that we have the power as people of color to make the change that we want in our communities. So for us, it's crucial to reach out to those low propensity voters and remind them that they have the power in their vote. So through Plan Action, we will be doing endorsement of candidates, but right now it's really important for us to just ensure that people understand this new process of voting by mail and that they are active voters in the Secretary of State's database so that they can receive their mail-in ballots. So for us, it is about ensuring that they are informing them about the candidates that are going to be able to push for policies that are going to actually improve the quality of life for them. But we also understand that, it's just as important for people to understand the process, because there's been so many Black and Brown communities that have been disenfranchised by the voting process, that part of our goal and our responsibility is to ensure that they are re-enfranchised and that we are informing them around the different issues that are happening in their communities and how they can be civically engaged to make that change that they need for them and their families. I think it's just really important to remind folks that mail-in ballot is not a new concept. It's something that many states have been doing for a long time. We know that absentee ballots is something that has been going on for many, many years. Our military is something that they use, so we know that it's secure and that it's safe. And then the thing that we consistently emphasize is that you can track your ballot with the Secretary of State to ensure that your ballot gets there safe. So even if you're concerned about dropping off your ballot in your mailbox or a drop box, or in your mailbox, you can actually go and drop it off in a drop box that's designated at the elections department, and then you don't have to worry about anything. But like I mentioned, we want to make sure that people know that they can track their ballots in the Secretary of State's office. And this is a process that has been happening for many years, and we know that it's secure, we know that it's safe, and most of all, it's convenient in this moment during the pandemic. It's kind of like when we order something online and then we track it to make sure that it gets to our house. That's essentially the same thing. We trust our mail services. We know that this is one of the most trusted government agencies that we have, and there's no reason that we need to think that our ballots aren't going to get there. Essentially, this is an agency that we know we can trust in, and we just have to make sure that we drop our ballots off on time before any deadlines. And then once we do, we just continue to track it to make sure that it gets there. And if there's any issues, you can always call your elections department office just to clarify. I haven't heard of an app, so I'm not 100% sure there. I just know that they can definitely go to the Secretary of State's website, and then you can track your ballot there. And then when you receive your ballot in the mail, it'll actually have different instructions on there, and that it'll have that information as well. One of the really cool things for the mail-in process for Nevada is that the state is actually going to be paying for all of the stamps. So when you receive your mail-in ballot, it's actually going to come with an envelope that's already prepaid with the stamp, and then you just send that out. So you don't have to pay for a stamp. It's no cost to the voter. So that just ensures that your ballot will get there. And then because it has the stamp has already been paid, you don't have to worry about that. And because most of the envelopes in the counties are going to be pretty similar, it's going to be very hard for them to lose them. So again, just keeping track of your ballots in the Secretary of State website, that's going to be the best way to know exactly where your vote is at and when it actually arrived. And then also, again, making sure that people are sending in their ballot as soon as possible, just so that if there is any issues, you have time to call the Secretary of State. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if they could, put another stamp on there and send it out. But one of their other options is if they don't want to put it in their mailbox and send it out, they can actually go directly to one of the drop boxes, whether it's one in their community or directly to the elections department's office, and drop off their ballot there. And that for that, they wouldn't need, for the drop box at the elections department, they actually wouldn't need a stamp or anything. They can just go directly and drop it off there. Anybody that is registered to vote and is considered an active voter in the state of Nevada, which means that they've been voting in the last few elections, they will be receiving a ballot in the mail without having to ask for it. For those folks that are not sure if they're active voters or if they're inactive voters, our suggestion is that they check on their voter registration at the Secretary of State's website, and then make sure that you update your voter registration by October 15th to receive a ballot in the mail for you. If you miss the October 15th deadline and you don't update your voter registration and you're considered an active voter, then what you can do is register in person. In the state of Nevada, you can actually register in person up to the day of election. So they can actually register in person and still get a ballot. But we do want to encourage folks to check their voter registration as soon as possible to make sure that they're active voters, and then they'll be receiving that ballot in the mail without having to do anything.